Had the auto industry in yesterday. They don't want people to fix their car. I said, that's strange. I've never heard of that. They have a thing nobody's allowed to fix their car. They gave a man 7 years in jail, actually, because he fixed his own car.
You can pay for the car, insure it, maintain it, and still find out the most important part of ownership was never fully yours. Not the keys, not the title, the access. The auto industry is moving toward a future where repairs depend on software permissions, wireless data, dealer tools, security gateways, and manufacturer-controlled procedures. Your mechanic may know the problem, the part may be available, the repair may be possible, but if the vehicle will not accept the work without the right digital approval, your choice becomes weaker than it looks. And when that lock stands between you and getting back on the road, you will understand why this matters. Ownership illusion. For decades, fixing a car was mostly a physical problem. A mechanic needed experience, tools, parts, and time. The machine could be stubborn, but it was still sitting there in front of you. You could test it, listen to it, take it apart, and put it back together. Even when diagnostics became more advanced, the idea was familiar. Find the fault, fix the part, confirm the repair. Now, the vehicle is a rolling computer tied to software, security gateways, sensors, cameras, wireless updates, and data streams the owner may never see. The repair is no longer only about what part failed. It can be about who is allowed to see the fault code, who is allowed to run the calibration, who is allowed to pair the replacement part, and who is allowed to finish the job. That is serious for regular drivers. A repair shop might be capable. The technician might know exactly what to do. The owner might trust that shop because it is cheaper, closer, or faster. But if key data is controlled somewhere else, the choice becomes weaker than it looks. So when a company says it supports repair choice, listen closely. Does the owner get practical access to the same repair information and tools that a dealership gets? Or does the manufacturer still control the gate? That gate is the whole fight, and the fact that this fight reached the highest political level tells you how valuable that gate has become. Washington fight. The reason this story caught fire is not just because car owners are angry. It is because the people involved were not small players arguing in a side room. Senior auto leaders met with the President of the United States as the right to repair debate was heating up, and that changed the whole issue. Ford was represented, General Motors was represented, the National Automobile Dealers Association was involved, the Alliance for Automotive Innovation was involved. That alone tells you this is not a tiny paperwork fight. When companies and dealer groups with that much money and influence show up to discuss repair access, the question becomes obvious. What exactly are they trying to protect? The public quote that made people stop was simple. The president said the auto industry did not want people to fix their car. Now, that sentence is broad, and the industry would frame its position differently. Automakers say they support consumer choice. Dealer groups say repair has to be done safely. Industry organizations argue that repair information already exists and that modern vehicles require more care than older ones. But even if you give them that benefit of the doubt, the bigger picture does not go away. This is an industry built around control after the sale. The vehicle sale is only the beginning. Service work, parts, software procedures, warranty systems, subscriptions, connected services, and data all sit behind that first transaction. That meeting does not prove every automaker wants to ban every owner from touching a wrench. That would be too simple. What it shows is that repair access is valuable enough to bring the biggest players into a political fight. The question is not whether the industry hates repairs. It is whether the industry wants to define repair in a way that keeps the most profitable parts under its own control. And that is where the paper trail becomes more interesting than the public statements. If your trusted mechanic has ever been blocked by dealer-only tools, write what happened below. Like this so more owners speak up. Legal loophole. This is where the whole thing gets slippery. The industry does not need to stand in public and say nobody should fix their own vehicle. That would sound ridiculous. It would anger owners, mechanics, part suppliers, and people who still believe paying for something should mean controlling it. The smarter move is to support a version of right to repair that looks strong, but leaves the most important control points untouched. The stronger idea behind the Right to Equitable and Professional Auto Industry Repair Act is that vehicle owners and independent repair shops should have access to the data, tools, and information needed to diagnose and fix modern vehicles. Not just old service manuals, not just a vague promise, real access to the information that matters when a vehicle is packed with software and connected systems. Then there was the Motor Vehicle Modernization Act of 2026, also known as House of Representatives Bill number 7389. That bill moved forward with right to repair language inside it, and on the surface that sounds like progress. It would codify older industry memorandums of understanding, and it would give the Federal Trade Commission enforcement authority over certain promises.
But the committee version was significantly narrower than the broader repair proposal. The harder telematics and direct wireless data provisions were not what right to repair supporters originally wanted. That matters because modern repair is moving away from simple paper information and toward connected vehicle data. So when the industry supports a repair bill, you have to ask which repair bill. Does it give owners control over modern vehicle data? Or does it mostly protect an older framework from a different technological era? That is the shell game. A law can sound like right to repair while still leaving the gate in place. And once you know where the gate is, the entire debate moves to one word that most drivers barely hear until it costs them money: digital gateway. The word sounds technical, but the idea is simple. Telematics is the information your vehicle creates and sends wirelessly. It can involve diagnostic data, performance information, system alerts, software status, and maintenance signals. Older cars could be difficult, but they did not constantly send repair-critical information through closed digital channels. A mechanic could plug in a diagnostic tool, inspect the vehicle, test the system, and work the problem. Modern vehicles can still be diagnosed, but more of the repair process may depend on software access, secure procedures, calibrations, and data that the manufacturer can control. Think about a simple example. A battery replacement used to be almost boring. Get the right battery, install it correctly, make sure the terminals are clean, and move on. In some newer vehicles, that same job may require the vehicle computer to recognize or register the new battery. If the shop cannot complete that step, the repair is not really finished. The part is installed, but the system still has to accept it. Now, apply that logic to sensors, driver assistance systems, electronic modules, cameras, braking systems, and software updates. The problem is not that independent mechanics are stuck in the past. Many have spent serious money on scan tools, subscriptions, and training. The issue is whether they are allowed to reach the information needed to complete the repair. If the data has to pass through a manufacturer-controlled gateway, then the owner's choice can become conditional. You may be free to choose your repair shop in theory, but in practice, that shop may still hit a wall. That wall is not always visible from the driver's seat. You usually find it when the bill goes up, the repair takes longer, or your local shop tells you the sentence nobody wants to hear. You have to take this one to the dealer. And when the industry explains that wall, it usually starts with the same argument: cyber excuse. To be fair, safety is not a fake issue. Modern vehicles are complicated. They have airbags, advanced driver assistance systems, electronic braking, stability control, lane assistance, cameras, radar sensors, high-voltage components, and software that can affect how the vehicle behaves. Nobody serious should pretend that every repair is simple, or that every person with a cheap tool should be allowed to rewrite critical systems. That is the strongest part of the automaker argument. They can say that bad access could create bad repairs. They can say careless software changes could cause safety problems. They can say that connected vehicles need cybersecurity protections. Most normal drivers will hear that and think, fair enough. But the blind spot is what happens next. Safety does not automatically justify manufacturer control over everything. If a dealership technician can access the procedure, the calibration, the data, and the software needed to perform a safe repair, then the question becomes why a qualified independent technician cannot get fair access under the same rules. That is the point right to repair supporters keep pushing. They are not asking for vehicles to be wide open with no protections. They are arguing for parity. If the dealer gets the repair information and tools needed to fix the vehicle correctly, then the independent repairer chosen by the owner should be able to get equivalent access. That is different from the way the industry sometimes frames it. The public hears cybersecurity and imagines criminals taking over cars from a laptop. But a trained independent shop trying to diagnose a fault is not the same thing as a hacker trying to attack a connected system. The real question is whether safety is being used as a standard or as a shield. A standard says everyone who repairs the vehicle must follow proper procedures. A shield says only the manufacturer-approved network gets to decide what proper access looks like. That difference matters because once the industry says data is too sensitive to share, you have to look at where that same data already goes.
Data profit. This is the part that makes many drivers uneasy. The same vehicle data that suddenly becomes sensitive during a repair discussion can be valuable in other settings. Connected vehicles can generate information about driving habits, vehicle use, system performance, braking behavior, acceleration, maintenance needs, and more. Some of that data can be useful. Some of it can improve recalls, safety studies, navigation, diagnostics, and product development. But it also creates a trust problem. If the owner is told the data access is too risky when it helps an independent mechanic, then the owner is going to ask what happens when the data helps a business model. That is a reasonable question in a world where vehicles are becoming platforms for connected services. Insurance-related data controversies already showed how sensitive this can become. Drivers do not like finding out that driving information may affect how companies view their risk. They especially do not like it when the data trail feels unclear, buried inside permissions, or separated from the simple act of owning a vehicle. Now bring that feeling back to right to repair. If a vehicle can communicate with the manufacturer, if service alerts can be routed through connected systems, and if data can support subscriptions, analytics, insurance relationships, or dealership service prompts, then why is the owner's chosen repair shop treated like the dangerous party? That does not mean every data use is bad. Some sharing may be legal, disclosed, useful, or necessary. But it does mean the industry has to answer a basic ownership question. Is the data generated by the vehicle mainly there to serve the owner, or is the owner becoming one more source of information inside someone else's system? If you cannot direct your own vehicle data to the repairer you trust, then your ownership is limited in a way many drivers never agreed to emotionally, even if some version of it was hidden in the paperwork. And once that data gate affects repairs, the first place you feel it is not in a policy debate. You feel it at the service counter. Service lock. Most drivers do not wake up thinking about telematics. They think about getting to work, picking up their kids, hauling tools, driving to appointments, or keeping an older vehicle alive for one more year because replacing it is too expensive. That is why this fight becomes real only when something breaks. Imagine your trusted local shop tells you the problem is not the part itself. They can get the part, they can install the part, but to complete the repair, the vehicle needs a software step, a calibration, a manufacturer-specific procedure, or a data connection the shop cannot access on fair terms. At that point, the owner's choice starts shrinking. The customer may have to book a dealer appointment. That appointment may be days or weeks out. The dealer may charge more. The diagnosis may be repeated. The repair may be delayed. The owner may pay for a tow, lose time at work, or keep driving a vehicle with a warning light because the practical repair path got too complicated.
This is why repair groups argue that the cost problem is bigger than one invoice. When fewer shops can compete, prices tend to rise. When the dealer becomes the only realistic option for certain jobs, convenience drops. When modern vehicles require original equipment manufacturer-specific tools and software, the independent side can spend heavily and still be locked out of the final step. A recent discussion around the Right to Equitable and Professional Auto Industry Repair Act included claims that dealer repair costs can be significantly higher than independent shops. The exact gap can change by repair, brand, and market, but the direction is easy to understand. Competition usually protects the customer. Control usually protects the gatekeeper. That is why this issue matters to people who do not care about politics. It affects whether your truck can be fixed locally. It affects whether your mechanic can stay in business. It affects whether a repair bill stays manageable or becomes dealership only. If this sounds familiar, it is because another industry already showed how this model can work when software sits between the owner and the machine. Software lockdown.
The easiest way to understand where this could go is to look at what happened with modern farm equipment. A farmer can spend huge money on a machine and still run into software restrictions that limit who can repair it and how quickly it gets back to work. That hit a nerve because timing matters in farming. When equipment fails during harvest, waiting is not just annoying, it can cost real income. A machine sitting still is not just a broken machine, it is lost time, lost yield.
The comparison is not perfect, and cars are not combines, but the ownership logic is similar. You buy the hardware, but the software decides what you can do with it. You own the metal, the tires, the engine, and the monthly payment, but the company may still control the diagnostic path, the authorization process, and the software around the repair. That is the model auto owners should watch. The danger is not that every vehicle suddenly becomes impossible to fix overnight. It is slower than that. One system becomes locked. Then one procedure needs dealer authorization. Then one replacement part needs software pairing. Then one repair requires a connected service account. Over time, the normal repair path quietly changes. By the time the average driver notices, the industry can say this is just how modern vehicles work. And that is the most effective kind of control, because it stops feeling like a new restriction and starts feeling like normal procedure. Once manufacturers build the repair economy around closed gateways, reversing it becomes harder. Shops invest around the restrictions. Customers adjust to the inconvenience. Lawmakers are told the system already works. But the system works very differently depending on who gets paid. And that leads to the real reason this fight makes the industry so uncomfortable: repair monopoly. The fear is not about a guy replacing his own brake pads in the driveway. That image is useful because it makes the debate sound simple, but it misses the bigger money. The real concern is control over the repair economy after the vehicle is sold. The auto service market is enormous. It is worth around $200 billion a year in the United States. That means every percentage point of control matters. If a manufacturer can steer more repairs toward dealers, keep more software procedures inside its own network, or make independent access more expensive and conditional, that can shape where a huge amount of money flows. This is why the right to repair fight sits at the center of a larger business shift. Automakers are not just selling vehicles anymore. They are building ecosystems. Connected services, over-the-air software updates, subscription features, warranty relationships, branded maintenance plans, certified parts, data products, and dealer service departments all sit around the vehicle like a second business. A strong right to repair law could weaken that ecosystem by giving owners and independent shops more control. It could make it harder to use software as a toll booth. It could make it harder to quietly turn repair access into a dealership funnel. It could force the industry to compete on price, speed, trust, and service instead of relying on exclusive access. That is what makes the industry nervous. Right to repair does not just protect a mechanic with a toolbox. It protects the customer from being trapped inside one network after buying a vehicle. Automakers will not describe it this way. They will say they support choice. They will say they already provide information. They will say modern systems require responsible access. Some of that may be true, but the test is not the slogan. The test is whether the law gives owners enforceable control over repair-critical data.
If that control is missing, the industry can win while still sounding reasonable. And that is why the next step is not listening to speeches. It is reading what actually passes. Fine print. The most important thing now is not who gives the best public statement. It is not which company says the right phrase after criticism hits. It is not even whether a bill has right to repair in the title. The important thing is what the final language actually does. There are a few questions every driver should care about. Does the law cover modern vehicle data, including wireless repair information? Does it give the owner the ability to direct that data to an independent repair shop? Does it make access fair compared with what dealership service departments receive? Does it include real enforcement, or does it rely mostly on old voluntary promises? Does it protect safety without using safety as an excuse to block competition?
That is where the fight will be decided. Not in the headline, not in the press release, not in a friendly sentence about consumer choice. It will be decided in the details most people never read. The industry is very good at sounding supportive while protecting its position. The phrase gets softened, the definition gets narrowed, the enforcement gets weakened, the expensive part gets removed. Then the public is told there has been progress.
So the smartest position for vehicle owners is simple. Support safe repairs, but do not confuse safety with surrender. Support cybersecurity, but do not confuse cybersecurity with manufacturer control. Support modern technology, but do not accept the idea that technology automatically cancels ownership. Because the next vehicle you buy may not fail in a way your old mechanic can solve with experience alone. It may need permission from a system you do not control. And if the law does not deal with that now, the industry may not need to ban independent repair openly. It can simply make independent repair less practical, one locked feature at a time. That is why the auto industry is terrified of right to repair. Not because every owner is trying to rewrite vehicle software in a garage, but because real repair access threatens control after the sale. The vehicle in your driveway is becoming more connected, more software-driven, and more dependent on data that somebody else may control. If owners lose that fight quietly, repair choice could still exist on paper while disappearing in practice. So watch the bill language, watch the telematics rules, and watch who gets access when something breaks. Comment below if you trust independent mechanics more than dealerships. Like the video, subscribe, and stay with us for more honest auto industry breakdowns that affect your wallet.